Hollywood is in total panic mode right now, and the meltdown over Taylor Sheridan has officially gone off the rails. Taylor Sheridan just went on Bill Simmons' podcast and touched the critics, the studio executives, and the entire woke outrage machine in the most hilarious way possible. This insane part is that Taylor Sheridan admitted on the record that he's been rage baiting these people on purpose this entire time, and every hit piece in media published about Taylor Sheridan, including Variety here, over the past 2 years just backfired in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. And the critics also spent all their energy trying to destroy Taylor Sheridan, and he walked away with the last laugh, a record-breaking news show, and an audience that loves him more than ever. Okay, so yeah, basically, for anyone who needs context, Sheridan is the most prolific writer working in Hollywood right now. He wrote Sicario, Hell on High Water, and Wind River, then built an entire television empire with Yellowstone, 1883, 1923, Tulsa King, Mayor of Kingstown, Lioness, Landman, and now Dutton Ranch. So the Beth and Rip spinoff that launches in May, Paramount Plus, is essentially the Sheridan channel at this point, and everyone in the industry knows it. One writer from Texas is carrying the legacy studio on his back, which is exactly why his refusal to play by their rules sings them so badly. So yes, the outrage machine, as you all can tell, has been working overtime and has been chewing on his shows for years, and he keeps feeding it on purpose. And there's also, a sense of in Landman where a character announces that she's preparing herself to be offended before Tommy has even finished the sentence. And Tommy commonly points out that using plural pronoun, as is shown in this clip here, for one person is incorrect according to the English language. This is definitely showing it right there of how things in the real world is. One side wants you to bend the knee to them, but they're not even willing to meet you halfway and stuff. Okay, so yeah, as I said, her response is to demand to know says who, and the answer is the English language. That exchange is the most accurate portrait of, modern leftover put on television, and the people it describes recognize themselves immediately, which is why they went into orbit when it aired. So the mainstream media, basically ran a coordinated demolition campaign in response, where the Guardian headline is Landman review by asking whether the new Sheridan drama hates women and stuff, and here from Entertainment News as well. And then, they're really unhinged at this point, basically. Okay, so the takes flooded social media too, with leftists declaring Yellowstone and Landman pure hate content and mourning his supposed fall off after Sicario. You see, his actual crime was writing normal characters, basically. Okay, writing normal characters. Okay, who talk like normal people. And in this industry, that alone counts as rebellion. So then comes the whole Bill Simmons interview and everything, where they detonated across the entire industry, where Sheridan himself revealed that, he first met with Demi Moore about Landman, and he told her flat out that she would be an extra in the show for 7 episodes. Let's go ahead and watch the clip here.
You want them for season 2? Like how you used Demi Moore in Landman, it was like she's one of the stars of Landman and she wasn't in it that much, but your whole idea for her was season 2. That's when you were going to need her.
So that, and I told her, when I met with Demi about that, I said, look, here's the thing. You're going to be an extra in this show for 7 episodes. You're an extra. And the critics are gonna they are gonna come after me. I'm underutilizing this, can't write for women, all this nonsense. And then I'm gonna kill your husband and you're gonna have to run the oil company. But I said, and I have a very, the critics in me, I don't care what they think. And it annoys the shit out of them that I don't care. And I'll be the first to tell you that there are things I do that rage bait them a bit. And this is one of them. Right. And episodes to where they could have watched it and realized that flip, but I didn't. I just sent them the first 3. Cause fuck them, honestly. Right. And so, with with Demi, I knew that when we put it all on her shoulders from an audience standpoint, you've just seen her in little snippets as this housewife, right? In the background, living this fantasy. So we've set her up by omission to be someone that the audience is already predisposed to believe can't do this.
Yeah, so y'all heard it from himself that with he actually criticized what he basically criticized critics and stuff and showed that, basically that she started off as an extra and stuff, and then that the critics were going to come after him, that they would accuse him of underutilizing her and being unable to write for a woman, and then that he was going to kill off her husband, and that she was going to run the oil company, and he announced the entire 2-season arc to her face before a single frame was shot, and the critics then performed their outrage exactly on schedule while he sat back and watched. And the rage bait, as he said, was fully deliberate, and he said it on record in his own words that he doesn't care, about, he doesn't care what the critics think, and it annoys them and stuff that he doesn't care either. Bravo to him, by the way. And he'll be the first to tell you that there are things that he does that rage bait them a bit. And he could have sent, reviewers the later episodes that revealed the flip coming for Demi Moore's character, and he chose to send them only the first 3. Summing up his reasoning in 2 words: F him. Honestly, I mean, he even admitted that he stressed the storyline with Ainsley's non-binary college roommate across the 2 episodes specifically because he knew it would irritate them. But when Landman Season 2 arrived in November, the trap snapped shut where John Hamm's character Monty died. Demi Moore's Cammy inherited Amtex Oil, and suddenly the woman the critics swore Sheridan couldn't write was running the entire company, firing Tommy over a $420 million offshore gamble and driving the season's biggest storyline. So yes, the season climbed to 78% of Rotten Tomatoes, and outlets like The Globe and Mail are credited with fixing the very complaints that they spent a year amplifying. So they congratulated him for the course correction, and the whole arc had been, locked in before season 1 ever aired. And this is where the whole thing turns into a comedy, basically, because the woke media walked straight into a trap that Taylor Sheridan designed for them. You see, Taylor Sheridan told Demi Moore that the very first meeting, exactly what the critics and stuff would write about him, and then those critics went out and wrote it word for word, bar for bar, and every reviewer who hyped up a furious script think piece about how Taylor Sheridan can't write women was performing a role that he had already scripted for them. Now the man gets paid a fortune to write drama, and Taylor Sheridan wrote the entire critic class into his drama without a single one of them just realizing it. And the Simmons interview had even more ammunition in it. Sheridan ripped in studio and network executives for controlling which projects get made while knowing, and in his words, nothing about actually making them. So he also vowed that he would never, move back to Los Angeles, of course. And I don't blame him at all either. Okay. But yeah, he refused to move back to Los Angeles unless it succeeds from the union, which it is actually is about as pure a statement of contempt for that town as man can deliver. So he built his own operation on Texas soil with Texas crews telling Texas stories, and the results speak for themselves. But because Taylor Sheridan also sat down with Joe Rogan and stuff in an episode, as you all can see here, where on the podcast, Taylor Sheridan went directly after the blue state politicians who were openly defying the federal government under the president. And Taylor Sheridan called what we're seeing so dangerous, saying you can like Trump, you can like him or hate him, but openly defying the rule of law because you dislike the Trump, you dislike President Trump. You know, the head of the federal government establishes a precedent. So here's that clip.
And it's so dangerous what we're seeing. You can like Trump or not like Trump. It doesn't. People are going to like presidents and dislike presidents. But now defying the rule of law because he happens to be the head of the federal government and openly defying the federal government, the repercussions of that are going to be, okay, fine, you can't stand this man. You think he's a terrible president and you're not going to follow his laws. But that's the new normal now. So
Yeah, but it also shows here that once that precedent exists, Taylor Sheridan warned the other side would simply refuse to follow the laws of the next president that the Democrats support, and Rogan agreed with Taylor Sheridan on the spot and called the whole dynamic a very dangerous slippery slope.
So when a president gets in that you do support, then the other side, because we've established this precedent, they're just not going to follow his laws either.
Right.
And now we've eroded the rule of law. And then what happens?
Yeah, so he kept going on Joe Rogan, and this part deserves far more attention than it got, where Sheridan blasted Congress for thinking no further ahead than, the next election cycle, and he took it direct aim at the proposals to abolish the Electoral College, kill the filibuster, and pack the Supreme Court, basically. So there are the same people lecturing the country about threats to democracy while openly planning to rewrite the rules of the system every time they lose under it. So yes, one of the biggest writers in television said all of that to the biggest podcast audience on the planet, which is precisely why the legacy media buried it and focused their outrage and coverage on the rage bait quotes instead. Okay. So yeah, basically, this is the same energy Elon Musk bought when advertisers tried to strong arm X and stuff, told them to go after themselves right on stage. Cancel culture only works on people who need the mob's approval to keep their paycheck. And Taylor Sheridan's paycheck comes from millions of normal Americans who watch his shows every week. The characters can publish 1,000 hit pieces, and Taylor Sheridan's audience grows anyway. And every creator in that town hiding their real opinions to stay employed should study what happens when one man like Taylor Sheridan decides the mob has zero power over him. Okay. So yeah, basically, step back and look at the scoreboard, because Taylor Sheridan is winning this fight on every single front. Paramount Plus built this entire streaming strategy around Taylor Sheridan shows, which means the same industry that wants him humbled cannot afford to lose Taylor Sheridan. So the critics need Taylor Sheridan for clicks, the studios need Taylor Sheridan for subscribers, and the award crowd ignores him while his shows pull the biggest numbers on television. Hollywood spent a decade telling flyover country that its stories were worthless, and Taylor Sheridan built a billion-dollar empire out of those exact stories. Every writer in that town is watching Taylor Sheridan get rewarded for refusing to bend the knee, and that terrifies the people in charge far more than any single interview ever could. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about Taylor Sheridan spitting directly in the face of the critics, the executives, and the entire outrage machine. I think, honestly, Taylor Sheridan just handed every creator in America the blueprint for handling the mob, the woke mob. Keep working, keep winning, and laugh at them the whole way through. Now, the meltdown over Taylor Sheridan is going to run all summer, possibly because Dutton Ranch Season 2 is already greenlit, and the critics have proven they cannot help themselves. So yeah, drop a like if you want more stuff on the Taylor Sheridan coverage, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can catch the next, Hollywood implosion the moment it happens. So when you're done here, go watch the videos, my previous videos, and I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, peace.